Hi, this is Beyond Authentic, where we go beyond the mundane to tell you all about authentic witchcraft. My name is Lisa, and today's video is all about the About Mabon, or Mabon. It's a little bit confusing as to the pronunciation, and there's a little bit of confusion about the holiday. So if you want to know more, stay tuned. I guess the first question to answer is, when is Mabon? Well, the answer is it kind of depends a little bit. So it's always within a window of between the 21st and the 24th of September in the Northern Hemisphere, and in the Southern Hemisphere between the 20th and 23rd of March. So yeah, it kind of changes a little bit. So secondly, how do we celebrate? What is Mabon? Well, Mabon itself dates back several thousand years, and we can track its lineage directly from no. Mabon as a holiday was only given that name in the 1970s, so it's a relatively new Sabbat, and it was named by Aidan Kelly and refers to the story of Mabon ap Modron, which literally translates to son of the mother. Which is like, I mean, talk about on the nose naming, but yeah, so that's what it's called, Mabon. And what all that significance is, how that all came about, I don't personally know. There's not a lot of details when I did a bit of digging as to why that particular god was invoked and the name was used. I don't know. But there you go. To have that information and do with it as you will. That is where the name came from. So what is Mabon? Well, Mabon is the second harvest of 3 within the Wheel of the Year that a lot of Wiccans specifically follow, and it's kind of spread out into the wider witchy community. Now, this is why a lot of non-Wiccan witches don't celebrate Mabon. I'm kind of got mixed feelings about it, but we'll get to that in a bit. So yeah, the second of the three harvest festivals. So obviously the first one is Lunasa or Lamas. That's like the first part of the harvest. The second one is Mabon, and the third is obviously Samhain or Halloween. That's kind of like the end of the harvest period. So it basically covers this 3-month period between the harvests, because traditionally in farming communities, certainly in the UK, traditionally that's when all the harvesting would take place. Obviously, as I've said before in multiple videos, the idea of there being set harvest times in the 21st century with modern agricultural farming techniques and all of the equipment they use now is isn't really apt anymore. But traditionally that's what they are harking back to in terms of kind of trying to invoke the memories of ye oldie worldy farms. Obviously Wicca is a new tradition, and so it was still in its infancy in the 70s, so this holiday itself would still have only been about 20 or 30 years old. Now again, Gerald Gardner claimed an awful lot about kind of having all of these past knowledge from past witches and past generations and things. However, if you look historically, there were just many harvests at this point. There wasn't a specific autumn equinox harvest. There wasn't a specific autumn equinox moment that we know of within the British Isles kind of folklore tradition. Now, some people directly link Mabon with an old agricultural holiday which was known as ingathering, or some people call it harvest home. Now, the clue to that is literally, does what it says on the tin. It was when they brought the last of the harvests home. It was the gathering in of the final of the sort of the wheat crops, really, if you like. Now at that point there would be a celebration. The last sheaf of corn would be cut, it would be doused with water, the whole village would gather around and douse it with water to try and bring on the autumn rains, because they needed the rains to provide obviously to provide water for the crops for the coming year. So they relied on those rains. That last sheaf would be turned into a corn dolly, and that would be used, probably buried in the ground in the spring at the next sowing time. But the idea that Mabon is directly based on that holiday is a bit of a misnomer, because that celebration would take place at a different time, slightly, depending on where in the UK you were. Because obviously, if you're in the heights of Scotland, your your damp, wet weather is coming in a lot sooner than if you're in Cornwall, for instance. It could be a matter of 3 or 4 weeks difference. So obviously, there's a much greater urgency to get the harvest in some of the northern Scotland Isles than there is further down south. So the idea that this was directly linked with the autumnal equinox, I think is just wrong. However, a lot of what we now use as an autumnal kind of holiday, this autumnal equinox holiday, is harking back to that harvest home, that ingathering holiday. So I think they are linked, but it very much isn't the same thing. In fact, in many of the agricultural communities of the past, there would have been a series of harvest festivals. Now, obviously, the church came along, the Christians came along and kind of tidied it all up and put it on a specific day and had a specific harvest festival event. In fact, as I say, a lot of those agricultural communities would have had their own dates depending on when their own sort of crops were ready, and that may have even changed within one community from year to year depending on how the farms were doing. However, that doesn't mean that this holiday doesn't have merit. And if you are somebody who follows the Wiccan path and you follow that traditional wheel of the year, then it's just a nice, it's one of 3 harvests. So it's a nice excuse for a party and a celebration to leave an offering if you're working with a god and goddess energy specifically. It's just a nice kind of moment to reflect. And I quite like the Sabbats, because even the ones like this one that personally doesn't really say a lot to me. I get a lot more from Lammas. I get a lot more obviously from Samhain. That's kind of that's my one of my favourite holidays, that and the summer solstice. But I do still like to mark it in some way, because it kind of, for me, it's that every sort of 6 weeks, touching base with deities, touching base with the workings I'm doing, touching base with, the universe and all of that magical energy. Even if I am hard at work doing other magical stuff, I still like to, at least in a small way, my minor little way, acknowledge that this is a Sabbat, even if it's one, as I say, that personally doesn't really do a lot for me. If you are wanting to celebrate this holiday, how can you go about it? What are the sort of things you can do? Well, one of the easiest ways and one of the most common ways is to put things on your altar that represent harvest and that harvest kind of energy again. So we're not quite into the full-on autumnal fall kind of celebrations, but equally we're not in that summer period anymore either, because this is that moment of change. And so for me, this is why my altar has a few different things, and I'll put a little clip in here showing you what's on my altar currently for Mabon. Okay, so starting on the left hand side, we've got the gold Costa cup. This is representing the solar energy. I used it from Lammas. It's sat here. It will probably get shifted off for Samhain, but apart from that, that is just my representation of the sun, because it is gold and sparkly. And it's also there because I love coffee so much. It's a really important part of my day and of my rituals, stirring intents into coffee in the morning and things like that. So then we've got a Buddha here. He just sits on my altar all the time. These light up candles no longer light up, unfortunately, but I will hopefully get those fixed. And then some of the regular things on my altar, like the plants, and there's abundance working behind there. But some specifics for the season, we've got an abundance working in this altar bag, or in this cloth bag. That came in a witch casket box. The actual ingredients and things in there didn't come from the witch casket box, but yeah, anyway, there's an abundance and a Thanksgiving working in there for Mabon. This is the candle holder, little spell candle holder that I've just turned around to represent sort of the darker period coming of the seasons. My crystals up here, they're always up there, although I've got the red jasper in there now that came in the Cures and Curses box. The wheat sheaf, you saw that in the Lammas video. I painted that, so I've just brought that back out. Well, I say painted it, it was a colouring in book, so yeah, I coloured it in. There's a bow tie there with a skull on and various skull motifs, so that again is just bringing in that ancestor energy. The picture there says Blessed Mabon on it. It's a gorgeous autumnal tree, and that again came in the Cures and Curses box, as did the red taper candle in front of it, and the little spell offering bottle there as well, and this amazing smelling incense. It's so beautiful. It really is fresh, but somehow has that fruity element and somehow also has kind of a harvest element to it. It really does. Probably the biggest change in my altar is the gorgeous Poppy here. As you can see, she gave me her name on one of my live Tarot Sunday live streams. So yeah, she is called Poppy, and she is a representative of Dia de la Mortes, the Day of the Dead, or also Santa Muerte, which is the Saint Death. Look at her eyes in that shot. Isn't she just the most beautiful thing? Anyway, she is gorgeous. So she now sits on my altar and will do all the way through, probably till maybe towards winter solstice. I'm not sure yet, because I think she's very happy there. But anyway, next to her is the Jade Oil Burner or Wax Melt Burner that I got from Box of Goth. But again, it's in the shape of the skull. We're starting to get that ancestor death energy coming through. There's an orange candle there. There's an orange Halloween tea light there, one of the LED ones. Now Poppy, as you can see, is holding a pine cone, as well as the poppy or the red flowers she came with. So yeah, she's got a pine cone, and there's a pine cone in front of her, again with that Mabon energy, that harvest time. And then just through this lovely green rubber plant, you can see there is a purple butterfly trinket box with a skull on top. That was Mum's. That represents ancestor energy, because obviously my mum has passed away. So yeah, that is representing her and my ancestors there, and just sort of that connection with death that obviously we get closer to with Samhain. And the secateurs are just there because that's what I use to harvest my herbs. So that is a harvest tool for me. Very modern pair of secateurs. You know, I could use a bowline, but actually that's what I actually use, which is why it's on my altar. And then the candle that's lit there is this gorgeous, vibrant orange kind of glittery candle holder, which lights up, as you can see, as the candle burns. And that's actually a wax candle that I made myself. So yes, there you go. That is the Mabon altar. So as you can see, my altar is very much balanced. It's why I've got an orange light there and green light up there, because it's still, for me, that kind of mix of that summer and autumn energies. It hasn't quite crossed over into that full-on autumn period. And so there is that sort of lingering element. It's really weird, isn't it? Because for me, Lunasa, which comes 6 weeks before this, that's much more autumnal in feeling, because that's where we go, yay, autumn's coming, let's harvest everything, yum, yum, yum. Whereas this holiday, although this is the Autumnal Equinox, for this one, I like to remember that we're not quite out of summer. There's still that echo of that summer energy coming through, and we haven't quite got that full autumnal energy yet. It's kind of, we're in that, I'm drawing that Venn diagram, as you can see. Yeah, you're going to think I'm Doctor Strange. Look, I can do this. I know, right? I know, right? Anyway, so for me, it really reflects that liminal moment where we are shifting from the summer energy into that autumn energy, and Mabon is literally that cusp. It's like, tick, we're just changing over. So if you've decorated your altar, how else can you celebrate Mabon? Well, this is the perfect time to engage the inner kitchen witch in all of you. So you can do some baking. So apple pies, apple crumbles, anything apple based at this time of year is perfect. Anything where you're using cinnamon, you're using those nice warming spices, is again absolutely spot on for this time of year. You can also do specific workings for harmony and balance. This is a key time for that, because we are literally standing between those two seasons. So it's an ideal time for any kind of working like that. Maybe you are wanting to bring peace to a troubled situation. That will be a good time to do a working, whether that's a full-on ritual or just lighting a candle. Some people refer to Mabon as the witch's Thanksgiving. Now, I kind of like that. I think it's an interesting analogy, but all of the harvest festivals, and in fact for me, all of the Sabbats are about Thanksgiving. They are all about giving back to deity, to the universe, and kind of recognizing where you are in your own path. So for me, all holidays reflect that to a certain extent, but especially maybe Mabon, I don't know. Maybe that's a newer thing, that because I'm not around working groups and covens and things like that anymore, maybe that's something that has come up recently. I don't know. For me, I think that most of my Sabbat work is all about Thanksgiving, but that's just me. This is also a really great time to prepare food for winter. So whether that is pickling, making jams, preserves, whatever it is, this is a great time to take that abundant harvest and do something with it, prepare it for the cold months to come. Obviously these days, most people in the Western world at least have access to fridges and freezers, store cupboards, jars and tins and things like that. So there isn't that need for preserving our own food the same as there used to be. However, it is still a good way of honouring that process, honouring the ancestors. Now, because this does have that liminal shift, and because we are headed towards Halloween, just remembering those that have passed, giving a little bit of acknowledgement, that is something that I personally will be doing for my own Sabbat ritual as well. So yeah, ancestor work, honouring the ancestors, however you choose to do that, this is a good time to do it before we get serious into sort of, you know, those that have passed with the next holiday of Samhain, obviously. Like many other aspects of the witchcraft world, this is very much a holiday that you can choose to celebrate or not, and if you do choose to celebrate it, you can do so in your own way. It's one of the reasons I like the pagan paths, is because nobody is going to say you're a bad pagan if you don't celebrate it. They might say you're a bad Wiccan, but no one's going to say you are a bad pagan if this isn't one of those holidays that you personally choose to celebrate along your own path. Again, this really is one of those things where you decide what is right for you. For me, this is much more of a low-key Sabbat. There will be a little bit of introspection. There will be a little bit of giving thanks for kind of the goals that I've set myself and where I am in relation to those goals. But also, it's not going to be one that I spend hours and hours and hours prepping for. I'm not going to be watching the sun come up and those sort of things. But whether you choose to celebrate it or not, I wish you a very happy and healthy Mabon. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. That really helps me out with the algorithm here on YouTube. If you would like to support myself and this channel a little bit more, you can always go across to buymeacoffee.com/BeyondAuthentic, where you can, in fact, buy me a coffee. If you haven't already, please do hit the subscribe button, click your bell icon and change your notification settings to all, and that way YouTube will notify you each and every time I upload a video. But that's all from me today. All that's left is to say stay you, stay weird, stay authentic, and I will see you on the next one. Bye bye.